Hi.
Hello.
It is a joy to have you here.
Glad
You
to
look
be
like
here.
you've been married
Thank
for
you.
1 year. Eh?
Thank
You're
you.
shining.
Thank
I
Jackie,
mean,
right? You see?
Isaac, what are you feeding her on?
I'm washing her with the word.
Of the
The Bible says, yeah, we need to wash them. Yeah.
Well, it's such a joy, yeah? It's happy to have you here at
Glad
the
to be
Family
here.
Talk Show. This
Thank
show
you,
is
Clare.
in partnership with Life Ministry Uganda, and you're part of Life Ministry, Family Life in particular, right? It's a joy to have you. We are
Thank
happy
you.
to learn from you. Please say hello to the viewers and then we start the show.
Jackie first.
Hi, my name is Jackie, like she said, and I'm happy to be here. Very honored, humbled. This is a very intimidating place. Yeah, but I'm grateful for this far we have come in the marriage and looking forward to the show.
Wow.
Great. Hello, viewers. Isaac, as you have heard, very, very humbled and glad to be here. Thank you.
Wow. It's a joy to have you at Kisembo. So you're excited. I'm still trying to catch my breath. But nah, hey. You guys are doing great. You guys are, that's how many years?
Thank you.
This is
Thank
amazing.
you.
Well, our topic today, this Friday, is why some marriages fail. And the Kisembos are right here to discuss this topic with me. And I'm already blessed. I'm already excited. It's as if I've met them very many years ago. It's comforting and you know exciting. So let's please go straight to our topic today. But for starters, as our icebreaker, where did this passion of working with couples for better marriage relationships come from? Were you sleeping and the voice came from heaven? That is your ministry. That was God telling you. Where did it come from?
Jackie, you want to go first?
I think Isaac will say how we as a couple got to this place, but individually, I used to watch my sister. My sister, one of my eldest sisters, was serving with Navigators of Uganda, and they would always do these couples things, ministry for couples. They have breakfast for couples, and I really looked forward to that kind of life. I said, oh, when I get married, I hope I have a good marriage, and it has always been a desire. So innately, that was there. And so I think when we had an opportunity to learn from the Chobes work with Life Ministry, and they gave us a mentorship in our dating while we were courting for a year. We would meet them for an entire year. We were meeting them approximately every month and just journeying with them. We realized that this is such a good ministry. There's so much to give, and what they gave us, we just felt we needed to give it back.
Exactly.
We needed to share it. It's so little. What your marriage has done for you in 1 year, you can give someone and they'll feed on it and they'll feed on it. Yeah. So I think that, I don't know if Isaac can add, but I think that's how we got into it.
Yeah,
So
and I think
okay.
the process, also learning and appreciating that there's no other relationship we see in the Bible than the one of the husband and the wife as reflecting Christ and the church. That's no other beats that. So as we grow into that, we appreciate that actually this helps you become a better Christian, a better neighbor, a better brother, a better sister. Yeah, so the passion grew as we started. We would invite couples home, just come and have a conversation. And as time went on, picked up, and yeah, here we are.
Here you are.
Yeah.
How do you feel? How does it feel to mentor?
It's nice. Actually, it can be quite a challenge sometimes to read because you have a busy schedule. But something beautiful is that it's double-edged. When we tell couples about their finances, we reflect on our finances.
Exactly.
When we tell couples to improve their communication, it reminds us. Sometimes after a session, we are like, but babe, when did we last go on a date? It's been a while. We are telling these people to build their intimacy and go on dates and build a marriage. When did we last go on dates? And so it's a double-edged thing, and it has blessed us. It keeps us going because it works on other people but works on us as well.
Yeah.
Wow, so you feel fulfilled.
Yes,
That's
very,
amazing.
very
That's
fulfilled.
amazing. How many couples are you mentoring now? Just 100.
So goal, we usually have about 5, 6
Oh,
that we are running with. It's because
okay.
it's it's mainly premarital.
Oh, premarital.
Yeah,
I
so
think that's amazing.
we are available for the couple even after, but we really are journeying with them premarital. So usually we try to keep it at about 5-6, not to go beyond that. Yes, and when we are able to get slots, when someone gets married, then we are able to journey, pick on another couple. The need is great. The need is great.
Indeed. And you led to the couples. How do you?
Yeah, some reach out to us. Of course, most of them, 70% of them are probably All Saints. But we've definitely had others away from All Saints who reach out and say, I've had this and this is going on. Yeah, so it's a bit of both.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So we're actually waiting for you, Claire, and your husband to mentor. We need more people. We need more workers.
Let me go to the prayer room. Anyways, that's really exciting. It's really exciting. So, Mr. Colin Babiroukam, in one of his interviews, there is something he mentioned and it really caught my attention. It was really nice. And this is what he said. He said that in life, you know, the education, the career is like an elastic ball. When you hit it on the ground, it bounces back. But marriage is like a glass ball. When you hit it on the ground, it will break. So, this is the question for you. Are there moments in your marriage when you felt like this glass ball, which is marriage, is almost breaking like the next minute?
Honestly, I would say by God's grace, not at the moment.
Too good day. Hallelujah.
Yeah, maybe
Yes.
Claire, it's because you foresee that this could happen. And so before it happens, you begin to do, by God's grace, you begin to do some work so that you don't let it there. Yes, we have been angry at each other, but moments where I feel like it's done, no, I don't recall any. Unless
and there will be challenges. Life is filled with challenges. Even the Bible says, in this world, you will have challenges, but be of good cheer, overcome the world. And so there are trials. You can have financial constraints, and you can. We had challenges conceiving our first child, and we were in this waiting and trying, and you know, there are all those things that strain the marriage from outside. You know, maybe a change of job when he was in between jobs, and there are so many things that can strain the marriage. But it never got to a point of why are we in this thing. It was always, we have to weather this storm together, and it built us, it made us better. And I think, yes, the support around us, God has helped us to be really covered. And maybe another thing that I think about now is the foundation. We didn't enter the marriage with a consideration of even ever exiting. I remember when we were dating, I used to tell him, when we get a child is secondary to this relationship. We, even now, when we when we need to go away, we get them, take them somewhere, as long as they can feed and they are fine. We will not make sacrifices for the children at the expense of our marriage. So they must benefit from it. So many things have given up for this covenant to remain, but it has never had to bow to anything else, yes, other than God. So I think just building that foundation and knowing that it is safe, that has helped us. Everything comes and goes, but we try to keep the marriage.
That's why you're here. So will you please share those tips?
And I think
So,
the attitude,
please.
when she says we come in a certain way, it's the attitude. Look
The
at
attitude,
take away marriage. Look at life. Someone goes through what you're going through 10 times worse, and somehow they are making it. You go through one thing, and this is not to minimize, because God gives us loads differently.
Absolutely.
But I think if you think about, this, it has to work, or it has to work. That's it. And I think when we began with that, it changes your attitude. You look at something, we always talk about this, that if we are disagreeing, we're on the same team. There's no enemy here. The enemy is maybe the devil, but we're on the same team. So we are not fighting each other. I think that helps us, even when you feel like you're annoyed, but we're on the same team.
Wow.
That really helps attitude.
That's nice. Do you support football?
Yes, we do.
Me and I
We do.
I'm helping.
You support his team.
We are all on the table.
Just don't ask about the team.
We are on the table.
That interesting. So would you
Yeah.
please share some of the things you have done to keep this glass ball intact, not to break?
Maybe Isaac.
Yes, of course, like I said, premarital counseling is important. We always give the illustration that we learned from the Chovers. People prepare, for example, if I asked you, Clare, how many years have taken you to get to this place? You've studied, I can say maybe like 20 years. Nursery, primary, secondary, and yet tomorrow, Clare, you might decide to be a farmer. Just switch and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay? But yet you've been, somehow, you've been intentional, maybe from your secondary, university. Now, marriage, we believe that when you see the babe, the feelings come and you're like, I'm going to do this. You have not considered anything. No counsel, no advice, but you just say, I love him, or I love her. But love, I mean, you know what love means these days. So I think the foundation of counseling was important. That really shaped our minds because we get to hear stories about different things. We got to hear, okay, when this happens, this happens. So that really helped us. That even when we came here, our minds were already shaped. And I can't separate, of course, the fact that God has given community, specifically fellowship. Fellowship is a big thing. Fellowship helps us to sharpen one another. You hear someone is going through something, and maybe you came, you annoyed at each other, and then you hear someone going through something. You go back and say, we are okay. I don't know, what are we doing? What are we doing? So that really helps. And so we are part of fellowship. We are intentional. We are not strangers in fellowship. That's important. We don't just come in once in a while. And fellowship is not because we are perfect. Fellowship is about coming together. You're all broken people, but you come to God to sharpen one another and learn from Him. That's crucial. Yeah.
Maybe, yes, please. And maybe just to add that for us, or for me personally, there would always be an innate desire to be authentic and not to pretend, to put up a show, because I felt like marriage is supposed to be your most real place. Your most real place. So you have to strive to be as real in your marriage, so that you don't have a great work life, great friends, you go out, you hang out, and then when you come back, you're sad. So for me, that has been a push to work at being authentic. Is there something that's disturbing the marriage? Is there something that's disturbing our communication? Work through it so that we are authentic. When we smile, we smile. When we are happy, we are happy. Now we even have children that can see, that can feel, the tension. So that desire to be authentic has really been important and has helped us. And then also working through our personality differences, because we have different personalities. He's introverted and has some sides that can become extroverted, but I'm purely an extrovert. I'm very talkative. He will be very calculated in his speech. I want to do things, and he wants to take his time. So those differences keep creating clashes, but we have been intentional to work around them, learn each other, and I think that has been good. We fight better, we deal with conflict better, because there is intentional learning. How is my person? How does he like to be communicating? How do I get his attention? Then I speak that language, and that has been really helpful.
Yeah, and I think when you hear, sometimes we get to hear people saying irreconcilable differences. Most times that really means you come into the marriage and you want to change someone to be like you. But yeah, and that's not how God receives glory.
Absolutely.
God receives glory in a way that Jackie is her kind and my kind. But for us to come and work together with our differences, that's God receiving glory.
Amen.
That's that.
Amen.
She has her weaknesses, she has a strength. I have mine. So as we come together and work, God receives glory when we work out conflict. Not when we avoid it. No, when we work it out and then we recognize that it is about God. He's the one who has led us here. So the notion to come in, why aren't you being like this? Why don't you do like this? Why don't you do like that? You're trying to change someone. And that's not what God meant. He meant, that is why we see in Revelation that people from every tribe, every tongue, every nation, to be in heaven and to worship with one voice. Not to become a certain kind, but to worship with one voice. That glorifies God. Yeah.
Wow, I really like that. And from your presentation, I love what you said, intentionality.
Yeah.
You have to be intentional in everything.
Both people,
I've
by the way.
entered, I'm not moving out.
Yeah.
It's either staying or staying.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that, and I love that so very much. So what is marriage all about? You know, these days marriage is about the roses, the ish.
Yeah.
The treat. So, from your own experience, you've been married for 7 years. Congrats, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Divide by how many I get right.
By God's grace alone.
I'm coming. I'll be here one day interviewing myself.
Of course. Why not? Properly.
Absolutely. But anyways, so from your own 7 years experience, what is marriage all about?
So when we think about marriage according to the Bible, let me talk about that. You know, I'm not talking about any other. Marriage according to the Bible is the two coming together. Okay? Let me be clear, male and female, just to be specific. Two coming together, walking a life of patience, sacrifice, love. Love here, which is a doing word, a verb, a commitment to glorify God. So it's companionship, friendship to the glory of God. Okay? As we draw towards, and that's what helps us become one. So the intention and purpose is we are becoming one to each other, but for the glory of God. That is marriage. When I say the glory of God is, one, your children. Your children look at you and say, wow, you guys love God. But even the other people who might not know you come to you and say, but there's just something. And we are not putting up a show here, okay? We have mentors who you visit them sometimes and they're having something going on, and sometimes you don't want to be there. When people are having something, you feel like, can I get out of the door? You know?
Right now.
Yeah, but it just shows they're being real. It happens, but how they handle it. Say, no, this is, and then they resolve it, and then they're okay. So, friendship, companionship, walking together in patience, sacrifice, love, respect to the glory of God. Yeah.
And maybe when he talks about friendship, companionship, it reminds me of COVID. And COVID, created that, vibe and shake, I think, in almost all families, having to be locked down, But I appreciated an authentic marriage in COVID because I would be with my husband. I even if the lockdown never lifted, there was a friendship, there was a comfort, something that I would not get tired. And I have appreciated that. If you see old people, it's a friend of mine, a relative one time who lost a husband. And when the husband died, the wife was crying and saying, who will I talk to? They would wake up at 3 in the night, very old couple, and they would talk till morning because they had run out of sleep. That's marriage, it's companionship. So even in the early years when you're working at it, it is not about, are we building apartments? Are we friends? Are we building a friendship that we can last for years? Because if I don't have a friend, then that's not that was not the intention. Even when God was bringing Eve, he said, Adam was alone, and it is not good for man to be alone. So, and also to raise good offspring, you have mentioned that, having to work towards creating godly when children grow up in a loving family, that is part of God's design to bring up more generations. So it is even the scripture in Malachi, our wedding, talked about, that was our wedding verse, talked about, why have I made you, brought you together, that you may raise godly offspring. That's the intention. Not that you will go on dates and be happy no, that this love that you have will give birth to children, and even if they're not your biological children, but any people or children or community that sees you, the offspring, the multiplication of that is what God intended. Yes.
Yeah, so when she mentions definitely, when you hear about this godly offspring and so forth, God is the reason for marriage. Because God started marriage. We see that in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. He brought Eve to Adam. And then Adam goes on to say, bone of my bones, flesh. And then God gives the instructions. Therefore, a man shall live. So, marriage is not about you. It's not about your happiness. I know that's not a very easy thing to hear. It's about God, okay? Him receiving glory in our friendship. And that friendship really is doing life together. Do life together. The talking, the going out, that is Christian, godly, biblical marriage.
Wow, thank you very much. Like you said, God is the reason for marriage.
Yeah.
We are in this marriage as a ministry.
Yeah.
What are you downloading to children? What are you teaching them? What are you doing in your marriage? Are people looking at you and they're like, but God, even if this is what marriage is, I'm not stepping in it. So anyways, thank you very much for sharing. This is really exciting. There is something you mentioned about being authentic. So if you get a challenge, a problem, so do you go out with, a long mouth of, I don't want to pretend I'm so annoyed at Isaac? How do you deal with that?
That's a good question.
Depending on the conflict. Depending on the conflict, because sometimes you take a break and think through why am I angered or hurt by this thing? Is it an unmet expectation? Was I expecting him to do something that he didn't do? There's always an internal, there's some conversations that go through your head. So I first have those conversations with myself. And then if I feel that, no, he knows that this is what we're supposed to do, he went completely against it, then there I address. And sometimes there's this silent treatment that people know that I try not to use it as a tool, but there will be a change in how I feel and how I'm not bubbly, I'm not talkative. If it does not get his attention, then something is wrong. Because usually my friend is able to see when I'm not happy and say, is everything okay? And I've learned from my dating, I don't delay. I break the ice and say, those days in dating, I would go around the bush, I'm okay. Pretend, make him beg. But now in marriage, if he asks me and I'm not okay, I am immediately going to say, I'm disappointed, this happened, or I feel neglected, I feel like this. I focus on how the action has made me feel. We once had a situation where he could see that I was hurt. He decided not to look out or come to inquire. So he kept quiet, and I continued boiling, and something that was very small grew, and I was getting more hurt that he's not coming. My friend is not here. My friend is ignoring me. Yeah, and that's where I thank God for support system. Who do you go to? Do you have a best man? Is your people choose best man and matron, same color, same height, same, someone who will dress themselves, but who is your best man? Are you choosing someone who you can actually run to and say, we need to have coffee, I am suffocating, because it was a small issue, but it was breaking me inside, and I was able to go to a couple, a best man, and tell him, actually even the wife, just called them up and said, you guys need to summon us, we need to have tea, we need someone to help us to talk. Yes. And in those moments, I'm not smiling outside and pretending, I'm cordial. One, because I represent our family, so I do not lash at him, I can't shout at him. I'm cordial, I'm calm, but I'm not at 100. Yes, until that is resolved. And we try not to delay that resolve. Make sure you get the solution quickly. A day, 2 days. Do not go into weeks and then you're dilly-dallying. No, for me, once something it's like how you have flu or a virus. What can we do to get this? Take the ginger, take the lemon, so that we get over and get back to the 100. Yes, okay. So that's what I do.
Wow, that's really amazing. Thank you, Jackie, for sharing. You also mentioned that you are two different people. He's an introvert, and then you are extroverted. Yeah. That means you deal with things differently. Yes. Your communication might come so easy, but his might not come that easy. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, for starters, of course, I always mention this, that let's use our personalities to make better our marriages, for starters. It's important that because I'm an introvert, I don't say, I'm an introvert, munange. So what can I say? Okay? Whichever way you are, if it's easier, maybe it comes easy for her to talk. It doesn't mean she just says, you know, it's important for us to do that. But I think first understanding where she comes from, understanding who she is. And I think that's a big part of communication. If the art of knowing, not just how you say what you say, but knowing the person. Knowing when she says something, knowing when she gives me a clue. And this includes both verbal and non-verbal. Okay? When I recognize that, this one, it is not like here, it is up there. Those are very crucial. So I'm always looking out, even before she says a word. I'm always being intentional to see, okay, how do I approach this? Okay, is this environment to approach this? There are some where you should get on very quickly, get them out of the way. But there are some where maybe I've been hurt, and I'm saying, no, maybe we need to sit down and open a Bible and say, okay, you know what? This is how I feel. So for me, I'll just say that you have to be sensitive to where she's coming from, what's going on around her. She might be agitated about something, partly also because of what has happened at work. So as you look through those things prayerfully, God is able to give you some strides. Even before you say something from your mouth, you've already gone a distance.
And I think also, for me personally, I am team versus isolation. I'm always for we must be a team. There is nothing, I will not do anything by myself. So that pushes me to wait for him. I wait for his leadership. I will wait. But while I'm waiting, I'm actively waiting. So I'm pressing in on an issue. I feel like it's time for us to take on this thing. Oh, there is a window to do this operation. Can we do it? Can we press in? And he's like, I'm waiting for his leadership because I need it. I need him to be with me on this thing. But I'm not giving up. So I'm pressing gently. And I'm saying, babe, do you remember the other thing we talked about? Maybe it's a consideration. How about, okay, when do you want to build? We consider starting to build? And it's like, maybe. So these are the advantages. Do you know that there's this, we can make use of this, you write down facts. So you're different in he's taking time, but you want to move. But how do you push team together and not leave one behind? Because leadership of men is very important. It's if you're not submissive, especially career women, you will end up being alone and sad. For me, anytime with my husband, I'm happy. So we have to be working together. And then I learn to gently affirm him lovingly, affirmations, babe, I'm not against you. I am your greatest support in this area, but this is how I think this is, this should be done like this. Let's consider this. And prayerfully, some things I just pray for them, and God convicts him, God changes his, and I take my words very, very intentional. When I'm going to speak to my husband on an issue, I'm like, Lord, give me the right word that will, go to him. And later on, he comes back and says, I thought about this word you said. So women need to know they have power over, not over, but they have power to influence their husbands in the direction that God desires. If God is for you,
gently. I think for me that's what's striking out, the gentleness. Don't just but the gentleness.
You have to know how to, That's really nice, and prayer is key.
Absolutely.
I really love that.
Absolutely.
I almost ask this: people involved, really, they change day in, day out. What you loved 2 years ago changes.
Absolutely.
And then you said you have, your friend. You have learned what they love, but it changes. So how do you do that? Your friend 2 years ago, 4 years ago, said, not the same thing he used to love. So how do you deal with that?
We keep dating. We try to keep dating.
Intentionality.
Yes, intentionality. We keep dating. We ask informal questions. Informally, don't say, now I have a question for you, no. But keep checking in, do you like this? Do you still like this? Every detail, even in intimacy, you keep checking, what do you feel about this? Do you really like this? Do you you keep checking, you keep dating, and then there's something I think you've heard about traffic lights. You ask traffic lights, what am I doing well that should continue? What am I not doing well? That should be a red light that I should stop. And what's my orange? That is okay. It can get better, but it's okay. Yeah. And what am I doing well is the green. That this one keep doing. So we review like that. We have annual retreats where we go away every year. We just take a few days, 2, 3, and just reflect, give thanks, plan, project, check in. How have you found this? Do you still like this? So it doesn't work itself. You need to keep changing, and keep checking in. It's even simple things like meals. My husband used to like G-nuts. He would say, I would eat G-nuts on anything. But now 7 years married, he likes G-nuts, but I can see that it's not everything for him. So keep observing, be attentive, look at his plate. Has he left the G-nuts there? Now begin to realize that it's no longer what he said he used to like. Pick up. What do you like now? What options do you have here? So I think being observant and being engaged, asking the right questions.
Being observant. Well, that's really nice, Jackie, and thank you very much for sharing. We are in a really, let me call it a time of you're looking for money. You're on job, and then here you are in ministry. You're mentoring couples. It's quite a lot on your table. How do you really balance all that to the extent that you have to pay attention to every detail? My man used to love black, now I think gray. So how can you balance all that? You're performing well at work, excellent. At home, excellent. Children have their time and everything.
Let me just say first of all that if you're not performing well at home, very soon elsewhere will begin to crumble. So it's important, I think Jackie said, having the attitude. I like when she said team. We are a team. God has designed us differently. Let's appreciate the strength we have. How do we max on that? If I'm better, if she's better with finances, if I'm good at housework, if I'm good at cooking, I know sometimes women don't want to hear that, but there's a possibility. How do we work together to lighten your burden away from home? If it's the kids, if I work a certain kind of way and I can get home earlier, how about I work with the kids, make sure they're in bed so that by the time you come back, we're at rest and we can relax. So I think it's recognize what our strengths and weaknesses are, recognize we are a team. I didn't get into marriage as a wife to die with housework and everything, No, that doesn't work like that. Then how do we work together? And I think when that happens, when you bring in another system, maybe you have house helps, maybe you have parents, maybe you have, all those support systems are important. Because once in a while you need to go away, but you need to know that my children are safe with someone. So you need, and that's why fellowship is important. That community, it's not just church, it's that fellowship where you can drop off your children with a friend and say, you guys, we need to breathe, or we need something like that. I think all those are very crucial, and of course the intentionality that she has talked about. You don't ignore it, Yeah. So I think.
Yeah, I think also priorities just have to be lined. You must know this is the order of my priorities. And as a family, you must have things that are priority for you. Work must thrive, but family must also thrive. So those priorities have to be in check. And we talk about work-life balance. And someone said work-life balance is not juggling everything, because you only have 2 hands, you can only juggle so much. But work-life balance is knowing the seasons. Some days, some things are a bit, and then other days, when the season changes, this lifts a bit. So knowing what is taking a higher priority is the work-life balance. There are seasons when my family needs me a little more. If my kids are unwell, I'll take leave. If my son is on holiday, we synchronize our leave and say, what do we do for him to capitalize on that time when he's on the holiday? Do we get some leave, then we take him out and we, give him that time, if it's Christmas break, what do we do? The helps will be away, what can we do together? And that will bond us. So looking on how to do your priorities in the different seasons is very important. And also just those priorities, keep evaluating, keep communicating. How are we doing spiritually? How are we doing financially? Because you see, you cannot just work. You need to build some extra income streams. You need to serve God. Ministry, it's a need. It's something as a Christian you must. What is it that we are doing to serve? And yet you have 24 hours like everyone who has a child, who has a job, who has business. So you have to keep checking in and communicating and saying, how are we doing with this? How are we doing with that? Recently we were having a conversation saying, no, we need to structure more so that you give work your time, because I work virtually. And so there are all these things that can come in. So we have to keep checking in and evaluating. Praying together helps. Sometimes we break down. I break down, I get tired, and he can see. And I thank God for my husband, that he knows where help and strength come from. He knows. He will come, he will pray over me, and not in the moment that I'll have supernatural strength, but it is what we need in that moment. When I'm breaking, when I've not had such a good season at work and things are not, so many demands, and yet that's a time that kid falls sick, yet we have a couple that's getting married, they need us to support them. You're a matron, you're a best man, maybe financially you're constrained, there's a season we're in school, you have to wake up in the night and read, but all these things, God has given us everything pertaining to life and godliness, and we can do it. We can do it, but it takes planning. We have a whiteboard in our room. We have to write all our things there for this month. What are we doing so that we don't double book? So lots of planning and getaways. Sometimes we get away. Our support system helps us. His mom has been really good. But you'll find a way. But just understanding that we are not going to be in this season again. So there are things we can only do now. So we must make the most of today.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, Isaac, and thank you, Jackie. Well, I'm not done with you, though.
Yes.
Well, okay. Out of curiosity, that's number one, and just for matters of clarity, you talked about when you get an issue, you get like someone to sit down with and then share. And it said that we are in marriage 3 people. That's God, Clare, and Bright. Okay, and then God, Isaac, and Jackie. So at what point do you bring in other people? In my thinking is, okay, I have an issue, dear God, this is the thing. So when do you bring in other people? When maybe Bright has come, do I run? But I get Jackie. So please, just for matters of clarity.
I mean, it's important, especially when you've just begun the marriage. Learn to always talk about things first. That should be first your goal from the onset. And I know that sometimes when people are friends, I don't know, Claire, maybe you have those, they are friends you've been with for a long time, then you all get married, then maybe you're always together, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. When something is happening, you can easily, but for the beginning, try and always have conversation with your spouse. Be intentional about that as much as possible. Have times and say, there's the couple friend of ours who I think used to say on Friday, and they would say, this is a no judgment zone. And to say, just speak freely. And you have to be intentional about that. I think that helps. If you feel convinced about that, okay, then talk to your spouse. I like the words Jackie was using, gently. Grace, the Bible encourages us towards being gracious in our speech, being gentle words. And so encourage, again, through prayer, and say, maybe let's hear from someone else. I know men don't like to hear that. They feel like, we are okay. Sometimes we speak to couples and there are 2 different things. Some says, no, we are very okay. This one says, no, we are not okay. Okay? So bring that in and say, maybe we can talk to someone. Who are you thinking about? You can even open it up and say, do you have any suggestions? So that you don't come with it in a way of me, I've come with
Yeah.
my person. Yeah, open it up and say, who would you be comfortable to talk about? Let's talk about someone. And give it some time. Sometimes he might not quickly say, oh, let's go. Woo! But, give me maybe a day and say, have you thought about what, can we talk to someone? And so if then that fails, then you say, you know what, do we really want this? Because if we do, we must find someone. Can we talk to someone? And I think then, hopefully your best man and matron, are people of good character. And then you can say, how about we bring them in? What do you think? If all that is not working, then you might have to probably call a pastor or call a friend of his and say, hey, man, this and this is going on, this and this is happening. But you must appreciate the process. Let's not be so quick to jump at step 4, yet we have not done, between us. The aim should be to grow our communication.
I didn't want it to go. And you've brought it out very well.
And just to add a little, what has worked so well for us is that we have fellowships. You can have a fellowship, can have a simple sale, and I just encourage people out there, if you're married, do not be an island. Find that if you're neighbors and you have the same values, just 2 couples, say let's have tea, let's have coffee, let's have a movie night, once a month, just creating conversations. Those have been very helpful because we get to discuss certain things informally, because we are on the same level, and someone would say something and we are jokingly laughing about it. Hey, man, we are hitting the point, but in a casual environment. So when we get to talk about those things, they lighten the issues that will need to be referred, because eventually sometimes it's an opportunity to ask a question anonymously, casually. We even have these things of judgment-free zone. Is this judgment-free? Yes, it's judgment-free. Then we fire questions. So by the time something escalates beyond that, it's really, really bad. Even in those circles, you end up having I think on Friday we are going to meet one of our couples. We are not mentoring them. They are our peer couples. We are just doing life together. But it is a safe space there to, for lack of a better word, report. For lack of a better word, they are report. I'm like, babe, allow me here to report you. So you did this, can you imagine? Oh, how could you? We are laughing, but it's simple. But we are actually
informal.
We are sharpening one another, and before it, the other man is saying, by the way, that time I also did that, but I learned my lesson. Because men like to learn without being told or talked at. So they like to pick that lesson themselves. So those avenues, if you're married, do you have a space where you can laugh and joke and talk in a safe space with other couples that are not yet senior, but you can do life together? So that by the time you escalate, it's really an issue that has failed on this level.
Wow. That's why I didn't want I didn't want it to go just like that. That's really very much clear. And thank you. I'll thank you again for sharing. What else did I want to ask? God help me.
So many
before
questions.
We leave this, before we go this other side. This is what I wanted to ask. Now let's really think for a sister or a brother. You are blessed. You guys are all in ministry, same fellowship, same circle. But let's turn the coin and look the other side. One, maybe the lady is in fellowship and the man is not in fellowship. So how can you really help them? They can't, we are saying, pray together, do everything together. But in this scenario, it's opposite. And we have many people who are like that out there. So how can you help such a girl or a man?
Yeah, I think it's always a difficult one. It's not easy. Because you have a desire, maybe you go for fellowship and you feel like you've learned, but then the other person was not there. They were in something else. It's not easy, I must say, and I think the first place is really prayer. Don't give up praying. Don't give up praying for the person. Don't give up. But I'll also there's a scripture here in 1 Peter, and I know quite a number of people don't like this verse, but 1 Peter 3. Let me just read it. Likewise, wives, verse 1, be subject to your own husbands, so that even if some do not obey the word, the translation there was are not believers, they may be won without a word by the conduct of their wives, when they see your respectful and pure conduct. What Peter is saying there is that as tough as this might be, you are able to win over your husband by your conduct. That's why I said as tough as it might be. But Peter is saying there are people who don't obey the word, okay, who are not Christians. And Peter is saying that you can conduct yourself respectfully. Pure conduct here is gentleness, gracefulness, that someone is able to say, but there's something about you. Let me go and check this out. That definitely comes in first, as opposed to, but you don't always come fellowship. Why don't we always come? Can I always? There are many things you're missing. To be honest with you, as a man, that one will not bring me to fellowship. It will not. But being graceful and say, think about this, check up, especially if they are friends, if the fellowship has friends, okay? If they are not friends, of course, and it's different, you see, maybe you can begin by just church service and say, hey, can we think about it? But the point here is grace, respect, and pure conduct. Your conduct can win someone over without you saying a word. That's what we need to think about.
Wow, that says that, you have something to add?
Yes, and marriage is redemptive. Marriage has redeeming power to redeem time, to redeem years, if we stay in the marriage. Yeah, there are people who will not, we know about the stages in marriage. There's dream stage, there's drama stage, when you're dreaming there, and then you're going to drama, and then you're going to discovery, and then the depth. So all this whole life cycle of marriage, you could start like, rough edges, not going to church, but then you don't know all things. Tomorrow this man might God will touch him. But will you still be present in the marriage? Because marriage has that power. It can redeem, and there are stories where someone tells you, this man changed, and I don't know where, I don't know what we were doing before, because now our marriage is completely different. So hang in there, because if you made a covenant, you honor it. The Bible says a righteous man honors their wife, even when it costs them. Even when it's costing you a reputation, even when it's costing you, as long as you're not being beaten and
That's
just believe
else.
God and hold forth for your children, for the covenant. Yeah, because it's worth fighting for years. And you will testify that marriage has been, has redeemed your life, has redeemed the years that the enemy has taken from you. And this man might love you in a way that you will never know if you hold forth and, yes, win him over with your covenant.
Yeah, and I think, how do you stay in individually that, as I said, prayer, but also don't leave fellowship. I know sometimes you feel discouraged, but don't leave those people who are like-minded, who think about the importance of marriage. Don't just stay in there. We normally give that illustration about maybe a piece of charcoal. If it's in the fire, it's lighting up. But when you take it out, it will get cold. So stay in there. Sometimes if you have to call someone at midnight and say, this is a sister or a brother and this is happening, and say, let's pray. Hang in there as you're surrounded with right people. Okay.
Wow, we have to keep in prayer all the time. So straight to the next question. Do you believe marriages today are failing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Some marriages are failing. Yeah, but that's true, because we have other marriages that are really thriving.
Yeah.
So some are failing. Why are they failing?
Most importantly, not understanding the requirement of God's marriage, God's design for marriage. That's very, very key. And that helps place my mind and attitude that marriage has a greater purpose than me and what I want. When you think about God and serving Him, for example, for you, Clare, if someone wakes you up at 3, you might even, and someone says, God is calling on you. You will get out of bed because this is the supreme. Now, unfortunately, sometimes we get to the marriage and Maybe we used to date, we're intentional, we used to do things, but now, as someone has once said, for the men, it's like you have your trophy. It's like you went on a tournament, you won the trophy, it's next to you there in bed, so it's here, it's not going to go anywhere. That kind of attitude that people come into the marriage that when things are difficult, you can always leave. That's a wrong foundation. So I think initially, first of all, they fail because people fail to understand God's definition and purpose for what marriage is, which we talked about. Companionship for the glory of God forever. Only God begins a marriage. Only God sustains a marriage. Only God ends a marriage through death. That's what we know. That's what, minus some of the other cases we can say. So I think if you understand that, that helps a lot. And that should help also with the second. For me, the two reasons. The first one, the second one being selfishness. We all love ourselves more. I know people are always told, love yourself more, love yourself more. Whether you're told or not, you love yourself. That's the truth, okay? Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you see it, marriage can only work when you strive to love the other more than you, even sometimes, even many times you're being called to. So getting into the marriage is important for you to think. I think about Jackie and I think, I'm here to serve her. That's why I'm here. Sometimes I may not benefit, sometimes I may not go. So when there's selfishness, you're bound to, because you begin to feel like, but for me, she's not doing this for me. But for me, she's not doing this for me. Little by little, that spirit, as it begins to brood, you'll say, but why don't I find someone else? Unfortunately, things don't work like that. It will be the same thing. Yeah, so for me, I think those are like the two big ones for me.
Yeah. And also, it's important to clarify what failing is in this case. Yeah. Failing is going against God's design, like he said. But failing is not you not having a big house, you not having a flashy car, you not having children or girls, boys, because sometimes that's what people think fails a marriage. So people are scared. They're saying, those people I think are having a bad marriage, or you start to think that your marriage is failing because you don't have enough money, you're struggling financially, you give up on the marriage, you've not built your home at 10 years now in marriage. Those do not qualify to fail a marriage. What qualifies to fail a marriage is it being a deviation from what God designed. And some of the things I can add are foundations. What has your marriage been built on? Was it built on a lie? Was it built on, were you coerced to get married? Because sometimes those are the reasons why they fail. So when you're thinking about it, entering a marriage, consider it, because the vows say it's not to be entered in lightly. Do not, just because you've conceived a child, that doesn't mean that you should get married to that person, So what were your foundations? Were you going after money, or really you were looking for a character and someone to do life with? Another thing are extramarital affairs, and these ones can be with people, but with activities, can be with careers. Those are extramarital because you can love your career too much, it costs your marriage. You're not understanding the priority. Or you love your family too much, you listen to them, you forget that you're left and you're supposed to cleave to your wife or to your husband. So there are all those extra things that come and compete with the marriage. We only seem to know the extramarital of men and a woman, but if there are other things that start to compete and you give of yourself too much, activities, people spend so much time in the gym today, you can see, every evening you're in the gym, you're not having time with your partner. Where is the friendship going to grow? So when challenges come, they find the friendship is not there, and it will definitely fail. Another thing is challenges in adjusting, in the first years, struggling to adjust your spaces, understanding what dreams you have. The adjustment can be difficult. So make sure that you do premarital counseling. Even when you get married in the beginning, try to check in and try to get support in the beginning, because the way you start and the adjustments can either tire you, create a fatigue, and you lose interest. So some people have children back to back in the beginning, they never have time for themselves, and they get fatigued and they zone out, but they're still there. And after, when children get to a certain point, they get out. Because the adjustment and the foundation was not there initially, but they went on just for the sake of the children. So look at how you adjust, look at how you build the foundations. even unmet expectations. I had this expectation of my spouse. As I got in, I didn't realize it. I zone out. As opposed to working, well, I haven't gotten this thing. What can we do about it? Have I communicated this unmet expectation? What can we do? Can we substitute it? Can we, working at it and not just zoning out because it was unmet, and you just, move out of the relationship, or you zone out. And even communication. Some people are not good in their communication. Others are doing too much, communicating too much, but the wrong information. We have a quarrel, I threaten to leave. I keep threatening, I'll divorce you, I'll leave you. Then, you run to your parents for a week. That kind of communication that is difficult and wrong. It's choking the relationship. It's frustrating the covenant. The Bible says a wise woman builds her house. A foolish one tears it down with her own hands. So this is to women, but even to men, do not play with the covenant, because it can actually break it. It frustrates it. If you keep threatening that you leave me, eventually I'm like, we actually have no relationship. When someone teases me and flirts with me, I'll give in, because someone always threatens to leave me. So those are some of the things that can, gradually break the marriages. Plus value systems. What are your values? Are you on the same page? We value God, we value faith, we value truth. And then someone is going and taking loads of money, corrupt, and just doing wrong things. Our values are like this, yet we are married. Of course, there's going to come a time when we cannot deal together. So look out for your value systems.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Isaac, and thank you, Jackie, for sharing. That's really exciting. What's the role of the church, parent, society in this as our final question?
Marriage has been called in community, the witness of others. You're not called to be one and just be together. Many marriages fail also because you focus too much on each other. It's about you. Everything is you. You become insecure then when something happens. The church one is a way of accountability. Fellowship is a way of accountability, formally and informally. I mean, you may not be seated around chairs and talking, but people are watching you. They're watching all you do, hearing what you say, and so forth. So it's important to first be in a place. But also, we are a community of believers. We are sinners saved by grace. And we need each other. We have been called to unity. Every time we meet, I meet with someone. There's something that happens. We are encouraged. You cannot separate the role of church and communities in a marriage.
Wow, thank you, Jackie.
Yeah, just support, train, talk about marriage, talk about what it should be and what it's intended to be. Let's invest in young people. Let's invest in young people, in training them, teaching them, because they are the ones going to build marriages tomorrow. They seem to not have the right information. We do premarital counseling with couples that come to us, and that's just a small bit in the ocean. But church has the audience of so many, couples, and I mean so many children, yes. But parents, what are they doing? Are you taking your children to these churches? But when the children come to the churches, do the churches talk about godly relationships that will build godly marriages? So train, mentor, support.
Wow, thank you very, very much, Kisembo. It's been a great pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure.
Shout outs to your fans. You're now on DSTV, Go TV, free to air. Shout outs, please, and then we sign out.
All right, really appreciate. Thank you, Claire, for this opportunity. We thank God for it. Thank you, God, for Family TV, and we trust God for wonderful things yet to come. Very, very glad, very humbled to be here.
Amen.
Yeah. Thank you, Claire, for having us. Thank you, Family TV. Shout out to all my children, our children, Liza and Liam, and
the All Saints community, family.
And just an encouragement to someone who is in a tight marriage or a struggling relationship. Hang in there. God is for marriage. God is for you. He will fight for you, and the season will pass. It will pass.
Thank you very much to you, dear viewer. It's been a pleasure.